This video review is another video that I grew up seeing. Well, I was 23 or 22 when I saw this movie, actually. And I saw it in theaters on 4th of July, 2009 with my brother and my cousin Andrew. And then after the movies, we drove over to Santa Ana and launched off illegal fireworks on a side street. So this movie was also very influential in my hairstyle, and some friends of mine also wanted to emulate the hairstyle of the Johnny Depp character in this film. And that film is, oh my gosh, speaking of hairstyles, Public Enemy. I picked this up. I think I already own a copy, but I have so many DVDs and they're not organized very well. So I picked it up last week. And I had feelings about this movie in 2009 when I saw it, and I had not seen it since, and I wanted to rewatch it, having just watched Michael Mann's Thief, and that movie was a 5 out of 5 movie. So I wanted to see how this movie compared, albeit 29 years after, or 28 years after Thief was released. Different cinematographer, and to me that made a big difference. So this movie, like I said, Public Enemies, it came out in 2009, directed by Michael Mann, and it was his first feature to be filmed with entirely digital HD cameras. And right off the bat, that really bothered me. The way that I can't explain it. It was very weird. Like, you could tell that it wasn't a film movie, and it felt like they desaturated it. So it just wasn't very, it felt very flat to me, if that makes sense. And there was like some long shots that just looked very, you could tell they were digital, and it felt very not good quality for what I would have expected of a HD production, especially at the blockbuster level. This movie did not do well at the box office. It was like 2 or 3 behind Ice Age at the theaters, and it cost $100 million to make, and it only made like $211 million on a worldwide release. And so it wasn't necessarily the success that they thought it would be. There were things that I really liked about this movie, and there were things that I didn't like, such as the cinematography, which I've already mentioned it. I feel like the way that the cinematographer and the way that he did the movie Thief, obviously it was almost 30 years prior, and that was a film production. This was not. But that movie was awesome, the way that it was filmed. I need to rewatch Heat and see how he laid that one out, because I think he used the same cinematographer on this film as he did on Heat. But there was like this very unsteady camera shots where it was always jostling and moving all around, and that really drove me nuts. I wanted these really smooth tracking shots, like kind of a Kubrick-esque, and it was just it felt very documentary style. Maybe that's what they were going for, but it really bothered me. I really liked Johnny Depp as John Dillinger, and when I think of John Dillinger, I think of that one song off of Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, Elton John. He says, Dillinger's dead, the cops won again. And you kind of get that vibe in this movie, because if they were trying to make you feel a certain way about authority, particularly the Chicago Police Department and the FBI, they won, because I found myself, I already am very distrusting of the government, especially shadowy organizations like the FBI and the CIA. And then you see here in their origins with J. Edgar Hoover, this guy, Christian Bale, plays this FBI investigative director, Melvin Purvis II, whose nickname was Little Mel because he was only 5'4", and he would have his people that were detained violently assaulted by the Bureau in order to solicit information. And they kind of made you feel like that maybe Christian Bale's character wasn't okay with it. But then when I kind of read about him on Wikipedia, he kind of had this very violent streak when he was in the Bureau. And he actually retired from the Bureau 2 years after Dillinger was gunned down. So John Herbert Dillinger was born in 1903, and he was gunned down at the age of 31 on July 22nd, 1934, the year my grandfather was born. So, and Depp was 46 at the time of his betrayal, but that worked because people just looked older back then. I don't know if it was the way they did their hair. Maybe it's because they smoked and drank heavily. I don't know. Maybe it's because they wore high-waisted pants and a short tie. So I really liked his portrayal, and I liked Christian Bale's performance as well. Marion Cotillard plays his love interest, the Dillinger love interest, Billy Fretchett, and I liked her performance as well. And I feel like this movie could have been way better if it was shot on real film stock. Period authenticity was awesome. I kind of went down a rabbit hole listening to the commentary, and they spent a lot of time researching on where this movie should be made in Wisconsin, and then they connected with classic car organizations to make sure that all the cars were proper and correct. And the shootouts were so intense, and it was totally the Wild West, if that's really how it was. And I think that's kind of really bothered me, is there would be innocent people around, and the FBI and the police would just go pull out their guns and start blasting. Maybe it was just indicative of the time and the way people thought about gangsters, and then they wanted to take this really hard stance where they just eradicated them as soon as possible. But it kind of opened up my eyes, wow, look at this. Here's this government agency just judge, jury, and executioner. John Dillinger comes out of a movie theater, boom, blammo, he's dead right there in the street. And that really bothered me. Even though he was a hardened criminal, I felt like I wanted this guy to see proper justice. And but there was this line in this movie. He was watching this movie, the last movie that he was in the theater before he got killed. He was watching this movie called Manhattan Melodrama, starring Clark Gable, and Clark Gable is going to get electrocuted at the electric chair, and he says something basically, to summarize it, it's in paraphrase, he's just basically don't go out like this, go out in the way you want to go out, or something like that. And it reminded me of that one scene in No Country for Old Men where they're typing up an autopsy cause of death, and they say they died of natural causes, and these drug cartel guys died in a shootout, and he's natural to the line of work they were in. So maybe that was the way he wanted to go out. Who knows? I don't know. I started thinking about all these things about government abuse of power, people not having their civil rights, and that really pissed me off. And just, even though these guys were criminals, the government just beating people to get information, that did not sit well with me. Maybe I shouldn't feel that way. I don't know. It just bothered me, okay? So I liked the acting. I hated the camera work. It was period correct. I did like that. Some of you could see kind of, he likes those nighttime shots where you see all the natural light of neon signs and street lights. I liked Mann kind of used that again, like he did in the movie Thief. So you kind of see some of that, but I feel again, it felt I didn't like the desaturated vibe. I loved the 1930s haircuts, and I think I want to get my hair slicked back and shaved on the sides like I had back in circa 2009, 22-year-old me. Can I bring it back? I don't know, maybe not. So IMDb gave this movie 7 out of 10. Google users are 77%. Rotten Tomatoes is 68%. And I remember not feeling very strongly about the whole HD effect back then, and I still feel the same way now, as I've said multiple times throughout this little discussion. 3 out of 5. That's my review for this movie. It was also really long. 2 hours and 20 minutes. And it felt like it kind of went on a little too long. Maybe they could have cut it a little bit differently, but it's their vision. It's fine. I liked it, but it wasn't my favorite movie. So this is getting really long. We're going on 10 minutes. I try to usually stay within a 7-minute window, and most people that are diehard subscribers, they'll watch it, but most people I've lost already. So I am interested to hear how you guys feel about this movie. And my next Michael Mann movie, I will review The Keep. I want to get a director's cut, and we'll talk about that. I don't know when that's going to be. Oh, okay, side note, maybe this is the reason they just kind of took out all these guys in cold blood, although they were hardened criminals. He had robbed 24 banks and 4 police stations, and they were freaked out by this guy, and J. Edgar Hoover kind of had this vendetta against organized crime. So, I don't know. It was a different time, is what I'm saying, and maybe I shouldn't feel the way that I feel now. I should just accept it for what it is, but that's how I feel. So, until next time, we will see you then.